This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
And a rebound in oil prices. Canada's economy has contracted in the second quarter, with the main culprit looking to be the economic disruption caused by those fires in Fort Mac, Linda.
Yeah, well, it's not a big surprise. And you know what? With production resuming, the rebound should be on, but then what happens after that? Let's bring in Michael Campbell, the host of Canada's top-rated financial show, Money Talks, to get the rest of the story. Mike, let's start with how big was the impact for those fires?
Well, like everyone, as you say, was expecting to get some sort of level of contraction in the second quarter, and we got it. It was 1.6%. I always say that, and then I remember the old line that economists use decimal points to prove they have a sense of humor. But look, that was the worst performance in 7 years. And you've got to keep in mind that the Bank of Canada had estimated, yes, we were going to get a contraction, but theirs was at 1%, so things are significantly worse. The big number that jumped out at me is we've got a 16.7% drop in annualized exports. And again, a ton of that's created by the Fort McMurray fires because, as you know, they shut down much of the oil sound, so those exports dropped dramatically, but that certainly jumped out at me, 16.7% on an annualized basis. Wow.
Now, does it mean that if these Fort Mac fires never happened, does it mean the economy would have kept growing, or am I just reading into that?
No, you're absolutely right, Drex. I mean, it would have grown, but let's not kid ourselves. I mean, it's mediocre at best, and I think that's even overselling it. What you would have seen is, because we're seeing other parts of the economy drift here. I mean, the export for vehicles and parts was down 6% in the quarter. Consumer good exports were down 7%, and that was the worst drop in 13 years. And the other one that, I always look for is what's the level of business investment? Because keep in mind, we have to invest in our businesses, capital investment, and that'll create the jobs and all the growth, that kind of stuff. Well, we've declined for 6 quarters in a row, and that's back to those interest rates, Linda, you alluded to at the top, and Drex. We're talking about record low interest rates, and that's still not been enough to kind of encourage, businesses to go out and spend the money that, again, has such a huge impact on job creation and stuff.
Yeah, these are weird times. And when I, as a consumer, see the loonie dropping, I don't necessarily think that's great if I'm maybe doing a little trip to Vegas or something. But we were told that the drop in the Canadian dollar would be a major boost for exports.
Yeah, absolutely we were. And you're right. I'm never thrilled with a 25% pay cut, at least compared to my American counterparts, and that's what that is. And I hope the more we say that, the more it'll come to people, because no country has ever devalued their way to prosperity. But you're right. We would have expected probably a little stronger action coming out of that drop. But you need a buyer on the other side. We can discount our goods all we want, but we need somebody on the other side to buy them. And this comes into the U.S. economy, which, of course, we send about 3/4 of our exports there. And you know what? It has, despite the fact it may be stronger than Europe and even obviously stronger than Canada in the second quarter, overall, it really hasn't done that much. That's why they keep hesitating on this will they, won't they raise the interest rates thing, because they just don't get that robust sign. Comparatively, yeah, they're doing better, but not enough to help boost our exports to any kind of significant level, despite that loonie.
Mike, it is rare for you to give a negative without a positive. What's the positive in all of this?
Well, the thing is, we already know that third quarter growth is going to be up, because they're rebuilding Fort McMurray as we speak. We won't have the big shutdown, so we're always going to be comparing, remember, to that quarter, and so that quarter was negative. We're going to be positive. My guess is you're already, going to see about 3% plus in this next quarter, and we saw it in June, by the way. So we had a terrible May, of course, with the Fort McMurray fires and all that fallout, but already by June, when things were sort of ramping up again, we saw the oil sands production gear up. We saw manufacturing wasn't too bad in June, so yeah, I think we'll see a much better third quarter. It's after that we've got to settle down and say, okay, we had this terrible event in the second quarter. We rebuilt it in the third quarter. Let's really see what the economy is doing as we go past that.
Okay, Mike, you're talking about a lot of quarters and percentages and decimals. So what's the takeaway?
Yeah, it's hard to even talk to me without saying that. I talk in percentages. But this is what I walk away with, is that, like it or not, oil is still a major contributor to the Canadian economy. So when we got the disruption in Fort Mac, it was just another reminder of the impact on the overall growth in this country. And so, again, I'm just putting out the reality there. Obviously, we have contingent groups in the country who wish oil wasn't there. But if it wasn't at this point, I'll tell you, it would be disastrous. Just look at the numbers coming out of Alberta. Their government government deficit. And that brings me to the other thing, is that I think Canadians in general still haven't figured out the economic growth is a good thing or not. I mean, we don't make this link between economic growth and financing social programs. I mean, again, look at Alberta and their size of their deficit. That's going to make things a lot more difficult. But it comes at a time when those same social programs, I'm thinking about old age security, Canada Pension, health care, all of that are under the gun because of the aging population. We know things are getting more expensive, so we need to pay for them. And you need economic growth for that. And I'll leave this because I know our time's short. I'll leave it for another time. But here we go again. We're starting a new school year, and we're about, I can guarantee you, we're graduating another, thousands and thousands upon kids who have no clue about economics or finance. We don't teach them the fundamentals. It's not prioritized. And if they knew what was really going on, as I say, this is something we should deal with another time, but if they really knew what we were passing on to them, I don't think they'd be so sunny in their disposition toward what's going on with the older generation.
That's going to do it for our midweek Money Talks report. Michael Campbell, the host of Canada's top-rated financial show, Money Talks. You can get it on the weekend right here on CKNW. Mike, thank you. We'll chat next week.
Pleasure.
Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980, CKNW.